This video is sponsored by Squarespace, an all-in-one platform to build your business online.
Hey Blue! Wanna make Silvervale?
Hell yeah!
Hey guys, what's up? So after making Iron Mouse, I felt like I opened a portal towards making vtuber dolls that I could not close anymore. But I'm not mad about it, so how about we make another vtuber doll today? Let's go!
So today we are going to make Silvervale, and I'm going to be making her in her Sakura goddess form because I fell in love with it the moment I saw the artwork. Commissioning my dear friend Blue Pixie, she then rushed to Blender and started modifying my Nova doll body by giving it a custom face, big custom tatas, adjusted the feet and made all the little details such as the vines on the leg, ears, shoe bases, a charm and sakura flowers. She did an incredible job again, and I'm so happy that she and I are working together on these really cool projects. Thank you so much, Blue. With the files all set to print, I then mix the light skin tone from the 3D printing resins and fill the forbidden soup into the 3D printer before pressing the play button and let my Saturn printer do its magic. To see the process of how the print is building up, I made a little time lapse here, and I think it's so cool to see in seconds what actually took hours.
Okay, so some pieces did not print. Lower torso, lower arm, and yeah, this hand is also kind of so I will put them on a second print again, but the rest looks good. So let's clean it up.
I always use hot water to remove the supports because it reduces the scarring and the supports come off way easier. Then I simply wash them with isopropanol and cure them in my curing station. This is important to really harden the otherwise soft, gooey and especially toxic resin pieces. I collected all the parts in my doll bowl so I can prepare them for the assembly. Her face is so cute and her tatas are so big. They look so big and squishy, even though they are made from hard resin.
But what if they were big and squishy, just like a pillow? I would so make a store that sells big and squishy pillows. Oh wait, I could do that, thanks to today's sponsor, Squarespace. With Squarespace, you can easily build your own website and shop with beautiful templates that guarantee a clean and professional look. You want to sell long pillows? Boom! You want to sell husbando pillows? Boom! But do you have waifu pillows too? You're welcome. No matter a physical, can't eyebrow wiggle. No matter a physical or digital products, Squarespace has the right tools to start selling your products online, starting today. Thanks to image blocks, your pillow images will always be cropped to the right size. You can just drag and drop them into position. And if you want to link your store to your social media presence, you can just change the links and icons. Easy peasy. So if this pillow talk got your attention, check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/moonlightjewel to get 10% of your first purchase of a domain or a website using my code moonlightjewel. That's squarespace.com/moonlightjewel, code moonlightjewel. Thank you again, Squarespace, for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to crafting, Elisa.
Before assembling the doll, I need to sand the pieces so that any leftover support pimples will cease to exist. I also make sure the pieces fit together nicely, since sometimes they can warp a little during curing. This time I will be gluing some magnets on the bottom of the feet, since she's just wearing Japanese Geta-like flip-flops that wouldn't hold onto her feet very well without the magnets. Also, I like the idea that she could hold onto metallic surfaces when barefoot. The feet also attach with magnets to the ankle joints, and it works like a charm. To get the magnets into the hands and feet, I put a bit of blue tack on a little toothpick and push it in after applying the super glue. With the other magnet on the wrist joint, we have the hands done as well. The head also needs some magnets, so let's do some magician work here. Awesome! And it works perfectly. With that last step, the doll parts are now prepared to be assembled. It always looks like some kind of body puzzle with a whole lot of pieces, but it's actually not as complicated once you know how to assemble the doll. To make the elastic hook onto the wrist joints, I first make little S-hooks from Clippy's family. Don't worry, I'm not going to give her Captain Hook hands. Then I'm taking a folded elastic with a length of about a Game Boy Advance and start stringing the arms by threading the loop through the armholes of the chest piece and then threading the arm pieces onto it like beads. I secure the ends with sticks before hooking the S-hooks onto the elastics and then hook on the wrist joint. Do that on both arms and we have some perfectly strung arms. Woohoo! To string the rest of the body, I take another folded rubber band with the length of a big lava lamp and thread it first through the head bag, then the chest, torso pieces, and split it in half at the leg holes. Then I just need to string the legs simultaneously and secure the ends with sticks again. Sometimes that is easier said than done.
Oh, ow! Oopsie.
Now I just need to hook on the wrist joints and the doll is strung. Let's attach the face and show you the doll before. It's so nice to see a creation that you made together with your friend from scratch realized in 3D right in front of you. I really love how she's looking already so much. This project actually took more of my crafting skills than I would have ever thought. It was like the crafting god was tired of me appearing once again and was like, next! But more on that later. Let's make her tail first. I created this tail template in Adobe Illustrator and printed it out already. I cut it from some white fabric and will take the same pattern and cut it from some packaging foam material I still had. I use a Sharpie to mark the cutting lines and also number them so I won't get confused after cutting the pieces apart. Then I use a sharp knife and cut the tail pieces out, and with some sharp scissors I cut the big tail pieces into 8 small sections. I do the whole thing 2 times and now take the fabric pattern piece and some aluminum crafting wire. I bend it into shape of the tail and cut off any excess with a wire cutter. Using the melting force of every crafter's favorite tool, hot glue, I stick the wire onto the fabric piece before using even more hot glue to attach the foam pieces to the fabric piece. You might wonder why I cut the foam pieces apart. That's because I want the tail to be a bit posable in the end. Once I glued all the pieces to one side, I do the same on the other side. And do the whole thing again another 2 times, so I end up with 4 layers of foam. With scissors I already shaped them into tail shape and now wrap the foam tail in some cling film to make a pattern piece for the fur. With the fur piece all done, I can then take some white faux fur, trace the shape of the pattern onto it and cut it, leaving some seam allowance. I cut it very carefully from the back with scissors because I simply can't figure out how to cut it with a crafting knife. When combing the fur with a slicker brush, it becomes really soft. I now just have to clip the 2 fur pieces together, finished sides in, and make sure the fur is as nicely tucked in as me when I take a nap with my cat. Then I sew the whole thing and turned inside out it looked like this. I left a little gap open on the top so I have an easier time joining the foam and fur pieces together. I wish I could just join them like in this transition. And as you can see, the tail is slightly bendable, which is completely unnecessary, but I really wanted to try if it works. Now we have to close the gap on the top of the tail, and I simply do that by hand with a couple of hand stitches. And then just the colors are missing.
Okay, so I tried pastel chalk dust on the fur and it seems to work fantastic. So I'm going to try working with pastels on this as well.
I saw that people sometimes use pastel chalks to dye fur, and since the tail doesn't need to be washed, it was the perfect method for this project. I just rub the pigments in and blend them a little with a slicker brush. Around the gradient area, I just try to make the blend of the colors as smooth as I can.
Wow. Oh my god, this looks so good! What the hell? Ah! Yay!
So yeah, I was really happy how the tail was coming along, and when I was completely done with the coloring process, it looked like this. I now just need to cover up the last open piece on the fabric and simply hot glue a piece of white felt to it. And since I want the tail to be magnetic, I then dab a dot of hot glue onto the felt and attach a magnet onto it before covering the whole thing with another piece of felt. To attach it to the doll, I drilled a hole into her back and now glue another magnet into the doll back, making sure it's the right way around. And with that, the tail is done. I'm glad that the theory of making the tail really translated into reality, and it looks so pretty. I will show you how it looks on the doll in the final doll reveal later on. Just wait for it. Let's make the shoes next. Blue sculpted these shoe bases that I already printed and first need to paint them now. For smooth color application, I decided to airbrush them. Airbrushing is a great technique. I just really don't like the cleaning process of the airbrush gun afterwards, because if you miss just a tiny spot, it might get clogged up forever. The results are amazing though, and it's very satisfying to see the color application with it. Once the shoes were painted completely, I then switched to paint and brush and paint the sole of the shoe and the upper brim black. I let that dry and then use a red embroidery thread to make the straps. I take a double and twist the ends together with some glue. And then I superglue those twisted ends into the little hole in the front of the shoe. While I let that sit for a second, I also glue in the magnets into the shoe, and when the straps were attached to the sides of the blue platform flip-flop, I decided to gloss them all over with some UV nail polish. UV nail polish just gives you the glossiest finish and it cures so fast under the UV lamp. And with that we have some cute little platform flip-flops. The pink shoe has a longer lace than the blue one and it looks a bit strange when not on the doll, but it will look great once it's on. Alright, let's make the centerpiece and the most difficult thing for this doll, and one of the most difficult things I have ever made, I think. The dress. For this dress I actually made a custom fabric design that I ordered to get printed digitally on chiffon fabric. I drew all the flowers and details with vectors in Illustrator, and Blue was so kind to help me with the sleeve gradients. It was a lot of work to make the fabric design, and it was supposed to be at my studio 2 days after ordering, and then I kept waiting and waiting and waiting.
So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting and they had to hire a new one.
Guess what, guys? The fabric finally arrived. Oh my god. And I already unboxed it and it's beautiful, so let me show you. Yeah, so after I had to wait a whole week for the fabric to arrive, it finally came and I was absolutely blown away by how pretty it looked. I got the design printed 2 times in case I mess up, and believe me guys, I did. To make this dress, I split the process into 3 sections: collar, bodice and sleeve. Here I am weeding out a gold print that I will attach to the collar pieces.
Okay, so the gold pieces are on the chiffon pieces and I will iron these on now.
Ironing the chiffon was a bit tricky because I had to find the sweet spot for the vinyl to be peeled off.
Okay, so in order to make these collar pieces and in general the smaller pieces for the dress, I'm going to be putting on some seam tape onto these pieces first, then put down these golden pieces that I, by the way, had to make again because it didn't work. Long story short, I had to make them twice. And then I'm going to cut them out and yeah, I'll show you.
Yeah, remember saying me I had to find the sweet spot? That's why. I had to make the pieces twice and decided to only cut them out after they were ironed onto the black cotton collar pieces. I also decided to not glue the seam allowances around, but to cut them at the sealed off vinyl line, since the vinyl and the seam tape make a strong bond. In the end it should look somewhat like this. I then was so free and already sewed together the front seam of the collar pieces finished sides in, and now need to clean up the side seams. I cut tiny notches into the seam allowances and then use my beloved Uhu glue to glue the seam allowances around. Uhu glue is really great in gluing fabrics together. When both side seams were cleaned up, I then just take the under collar piece and glue it to the back side of the upper collar for a seam-free finish.
Okay, one problem. In order to make this dress, it's transparent here, not transparent there. I have to trick a little bit because I cannot make it like this. This is impossible to realize. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a non-see-through bodysuit and then top it with the transparent print fabric and make the little cutout and stuff. And I think that's a very nice solution and hopefully it works. Let's try.
I really hoped that this trick would work, so I first cut out the bodice pattern piece from black cotton fabric and then the dress piece from the chiffon fabric. They turned out so nice, so I proceed to clean up the leg holes of the bodice using some seam tape. I do that on both front and back. Now we need to prepare the chiffon pieces.
Please don't mind my surface, my paper ripped.
In order to clean up the edges of the chiffon fabric, I decided to cut out some gold trim with my dad's professional potter he has in his company and iron it onto the edge of the dress pattern pieces. It's not 100% like the artwork, I know, but I think it's just as pretty and fits the aesthetic of the dress as well.
And now I'm going to iron these pieces together with seam tape here and add a little seam tape there so that we can then add this little flower on top and make the cutout. Let's do that.
Here you can see I ironed some seam tape onto the top of the bodice already and now carefully place the chiffon piece on top of it and melt the pieces together carefully with my iron. Yes, it worked and it looks so nice. Instead of using the iron press, I then iron on the little flower with my iron as well. It also worked quite well, yay! Now I very carefully use my tiny embroidery scissors and slowly cut out the little flower for the cutout. I then wanted to clean up the edges with a lighter for a nicer finish, and that is where things went very wrong.
I tried to clean up the cutout and I burned a hole into the fabric.
So after a mental breakdown, a lot of tears and a little break, I carefully removed the burnt fabric piece from the bodice piece, and because I luckily had one more try on my fabric, I made the front piece again and decided to make the frame of the cutout golden as well this time. I placed the pieces on top of each other, ironed them on and cut them out, and decided to leave the cutout like this because I was too afraid of messing it up again. And I actually think it looks even better. Now I cut notches into the side seam allowances and also carefully glue these around like I did on the collar pieces with my Uhu glue. I do that to both side seams and also take the opportunity to glue around the underbust cup line. I have no idea how it's called, but it's basically the seam allowances along where I will place the bra cups. Speaking of bra cups, let's make them. I doubled the chiffon and cotton fabric for these as well, and first sew 2 darts on top of the cup. Then I clean up the upper seam allowances of the cup and can fold the big dart on the bottom of the cup together and hem it finished sides in. With the dress bodice cleaned up, I then take the cups and glue them onto the dress. I apply the glue on the back side and then glue them from the back side as well. I secure them by top stitching the cups onto the dress. For the back side of the dress, I had to make it 2 pieces because the dress needs a closure so I could put it onto the doll, and first sew together the upper back seam about the length of a staple before attaching it to the lower dress piece and cleaning up the side seams like I did on the front. Then we can finally join together the front and back side of the dress at the tiny side seams finished sides in. I also cleaned up the top seam allowance of the dress and then totally forgot to show how I sewed the collar to the dress. Oh well, luckily my videos are not tutorials. To make the invisible lacing on the dress, I decided to take some folded fabric stripes and first marked where I want the loops for the lacing to be. I then take an elastic thread and create little elastic loops by threading them through the stripes with a needle. I carefully do that 5 times on every of the 4 stripes I will be needing for the dress. When I prepared all of the 4 stripes, I then will glue them to the inside of the dress on the front and back. With the lacing added from top to bottom, it looks like this. I also added a button tape-like closure to the dress with the same elastic loop technique and some tiny golden beads. For the charm on the collar, I take this tiny drop cabochon I painted blue from the back side and first glue it onto a thread. I then add a tiny pink bead onto the thread on top of the cabochon and top the whole thing with a pink rhinestone. Thanks to having the whole thing on thread and needle, I can then just simply sew it onto the collar with a couple of stitches. I also apply a little rhinestone flower on top of the collar. I kind of forgot to close the crotch seam until that point, so I do that real quick by sewing it finished sides in. And then it is time to make the wooden sakura branches that are on top of the cleavage of the dress. I decided to make them from cos clay because it stays flexible after baking. I take 2 little sausages and twist the ends together and then add more little sausages to the shape, trying to make it look somewhat similar to the artwork. I really take my time here because I'm not that trained in hand sculpting, but it was actually a lot of fun. After baking, I can then use some brown acrylic paint and a brush to paint the whole thing in a nice wooden brown color. It looked beautiful when it was done, and I apologize for my paint-colored fingers. I then take the sakura flowers that Blue sculpted and I printed in white resin and paint them not with acrylics but instead with pastel chalk dust. This way they will almost look like frosted sugar flowers because 3D printed resin is always a little translucent. To apply all of the decorations, I will use some Kraftkleber and apply it to the dress and backside of the branches and wait for it to get tacky. When the branches were attached, I then take all the little tiny forbidden sugar flowers and glue them to the branches. I really love decorating things with small little details. The last thing we need to make before making the sleeves is the belt. I cut some red satin cord and will now add this little golden cord and cap to it for clean finish by gluing it onto one end of the cord. I then take the 3D printed charm Blue sculpted and will paint it gold with my favorite liquid golden paint. It's so cool how the gold makes all the little details on the charm appear that you could barely see on the bead before. To attach it to the belt, I first thread this tiny golden ring through the eyelet of the cord cap and close it. With some super glue, I then attach the charm to the ring while almost also gluing my fingers together. Now it's just the tassel missing. I already made one off cam in a similar way I made them on my giant moth girl, and now glue some small loops to them using the embroidery thread I used to tie the tassel together. I also cut off the little wire on top of the tassel and the bead that I added and seal it off with some glue. And then I simply glue the tassel with a bead to the end of the charm. And done! That looks great! But does it hold? Yep, it does! Yay! I then put the belt on top of the dress and glue it together with some hot glue like this. And then using some contact cement I attach it to the dress. Using some big already painted sakura flowers I then finish off the belt with them. And with that, the centerpiece of the dress is done. It was a huge challenge to make this already, and we are still not done because the sleeves are still missing, and these were a bit of a challenge as well.
Okay, so the sleeves are also not that easy to make. I tried them once already, it did not work out. So what we did now is I ironed on this gold trim onto the fabric of the sleeves and also made some transparent white sleeves. I hope you guys can see that. And I will put these together, make them transparent, and right at the arm I will make some tight jersey sleeves and then just put the sheer sleeve on top of it. I think with the sheerness of the dress that will look really pretty. At least I hope so. Oh!
Yeah, so after my first try, this was also my last chance to get the sleeves right. So I first make the jersey sleeves by cleaning up the upper and lower seam allowances with seam tape and sewing them together finished sides in. After doing so, I put them onto the doll arms to see if they fit nicely. Here I already carefully cut out the sleeve pieces along the vinyl and added the sheer white sleeve to the inside of the sleeve. I will simply attach it with some seam tape. After that was done, I then placed the sheer sleeves around the jersey sleeve on the arm and then use a bit of uhu glue to secure it in place on top of the jersey sleeve. This looks really nice. I'm just gonna attach a tiny seam tape to close this here, and the rest will stay open. Looks really nice. Yes. For the decorations of the sleeves, the big petals are still missing, and I made them from some translucent polymer clay and will paint them in the same fashion as I did with the flowers by simply dusting on some pastel chalk dust. And then it is time for decorating the sleeves. I glue on the big petals first using some contact adhesive. No, I didn't record! Oh my god! Come on. I just attached these flowers. Yeah, I thought I recorded ending the flowers, but apparently my cam did not. But really it was just arranging the flowers on the sleeve. I tried to make the sleeve decorations as symmetrical as I could, and with that the sleeves are done and we are finally done with the clothes for this doll. It was technically just one dress with sleeves, but holy moly, I think I ended up needing 4 or 5 days to make it. It was nuts, but worth it in the end. I also added the little chimes to the sleeves in a similar way as I did on the collar. Before we could make the wig, which I was dreading to do because of the haircut, I needed to make her some wefts. I decided to dye the doll hair with pastel chalks this time because this way the tail and hair will have exactly the same color and will make the whole doll look more cohesive. It's like dyeing hair with hair chalks essentially, and since the wig is not washable anyways, it will look and work really nice, I think. To secure the hair color a bit, I set it into the hair with heat.
I just have to do that with all the hair. It's gonna take a while. So I really want to make this wig. I have all the wefts done. I'm so scared to start because I have no idea how to cut hair and to style it. And I'm really not that good at it. You guys might know from past videos that my hairstyling techniques are not very consistent. Okay, so I'm gonna try a spell technique that I learned recently, and I hope it works because that might make things easier. So... It worked! So my friend Chris happens to be here and visiting me and happens to be a professional hairstylist.
Who also did your hair today.
Also did my hair today, as you might have noticed. And she offered me to help me style the wig.
Yes.
Yes, awesome.
So, should we get started?
Yes, I'm excited.
The hairstyling gods really heard my cry for help here, and I'm so happy Chris was so kind to offer me help with the wig. First we decided to glue the whole back of the hair because the actual action is happening in the front of the wig. So I'm gluing weft by weft to the back of the hair until I reach the top of the head.
We have a nice back now. Whee!
From the back, you wouldn't even notice that you needed my help.
We then decided to glue the side pieces to the wig that will be curled into the long curls on the side. Chris then explained to me the curl needs to be curled towards the face to give it that signature shape. We basically built the wig and styled it simultaneously.
So sometimes you see that the curl is a bit too sleek, especially when you look at the picture, it's a bit more voluminous. So what I do is I take one strand of hair, just kind of pull the curl up.
It's freaking magic. What the hell? Yo!
By pulling on it, you kind of give it that volume. So for step number 2, as you can see, we have this piece right here that kind of sticks out and the piece in the front, but that one is on top of the other. So I think it's best to start with the little, what kind of looks like sideburn ears thingies, which is basically just a weft on top of the tendril we just made.
Okay.
And then we can flick it out. Since the layers are in there, I like to lift it up a little bit and kind of cut it at that angle.
Chris then proceeds to cut the side pieces at an angle so that they will have the right shape when styling them later on. She also thins them out a bit by cutting into them for a more feathery look. And to style them, she uses a hair iron and sets the shape with some hairspray. We then add more strands on top of the side pieces for the face framing bangs.
So these side bangs are a little bit more wild, so I'm gonna razor them.
Chris uses an eyebrow trimmer for a nice wild look on the bangs and then curls them towards the face with the hair iron. For the parting wefts, we first add a little strand underneath the wig cap that we will create a hairline with, and then add the left side of the bangs on top of the wig. Chris then curls the strand upwards, and with the help of a thread, she showed me that we can create a nice fold that will look like a little fake hairline.
Yo! Exactly! And that's how you made a fake hairline parting. And we still have this piece right here, and I'm just gonna add that to the little tendrils there.
And then Chris just split the remaining hair and added it to the tendrils and hime bangs. We then fill up the other side of the bangs with hair, and then it's time to cut those bangs.
The thing about side swept bangs is that they're often pulled to the other side, because that way, this is short and that is long.
Chris cut them with her technique, and this way they already have the right length and now just need to be thinned out a little and styled into shape. And then we cut the wig open along the parting lines so we can then add the remaining part wefts from the inside for a nice and clean finish. This is always a little tricky to film because no matter what angle I choose, my hands are kind of always in the way, but I basically just glue them to the inside and fold them around towards the outside and then just glue the parting line back together. And then the parting wefts just have to be divided, shortened and styled into shape of the hairstyle of the wig until we end up with something like this. This has to be one of the nicest wigs that has ever entered my videos. Thank you so much, Chris, for helping me out here. It really saved me a lot of trouble with this advanced hairstyling.
Okay, so now that the work is done, I'm gonna send you back to the Netherworld. I mean, the Netherlands.
But you were gonna buy me dinner!
Done.
To decorate the wig, we still need to make some decorations. So let's start by painting the 3D printed ears blue sculpted with some blue acrylic paint. I applied 2 to 3 layers of the paint until they are evenly covered. And then, using the same technique as I did on the flowers, I blush the pink of the ears with pastel chalk dust and secure everything with a good coat of Mr. Superclear. When they were all done and dried, I then proceed to glue them on top of the wig with some uwu glue. And then I also add the little sakura crown I made the same way as I made the branches on the dress and carefully glue it in place. And then I simply finish off the crown, gluing a bunch of little sakura flowers to the branches, and last but not least, like the cherry on the icing, a tiny little star in the middle of the crown. Before finally painting the face, let's make her a custom doll stand, shall we? To make the doll stand, I took Silvervale's logo and made a more simplified vectorized version of it that I could realize with materials and machines accessible to me. I then headed over to my laser cutter and cut the sakura flowers from pastel pink acrylic. And to make the base for the doll stand, we use another machine.
So we are trying to cut this shape out of clear transparent acrylic with my dad's cutter machine because my laser doesn't cut transparent acrylic. So let's hope that works. It's gonna be very loud.
Since my diode laser can't cut transparent acrylic, I was glad that my dad helped me to cut the base with his milling machine. It slowly cuts through the acrylic in multiple passes. When it was done, I can put away the ear protection and wait for Dad to remove the plate from the base plate.
Cool.
Are you ready for some peel-off ASMR? Oh my god, it looks like glass. Wow, it's so pretty. I then printed the design in original size, so I know exactly where to put the flowers and font, and cut the font from light blue self-adhesive vinyl with a plotter, and with united powers of my dad and me, because he came to check on me to see if the clear transparent base turned out nice, we applied the font onto the base plate. We rub on the vinyl and transfer film, and then just peel off the transfer film to reveal the shiny blue vinyl. To apply all the little flowers, I will be using some double-faced tape. I stuck it onto the flowers already and then just peel off the second layer and stick them onto the base. It was a bit like a puzzle, but hey, I like puzzles, so this was actually super relaxing to me. For the tiny petals, I however decided to use super glue, even though I have a love-hate relationship with it. Why do my fingertips always end up with a layer of dried super glue afterwards? Now just the inside of the flowers are missing, and I cut them from white self-adhesive vinyl and stick them onto the middle of each flower. When all flowers were done, it looked like this, and it kind of looks so professional. I'm just a little proud of how it turned out. The last thing to do is attaching the rod to the little hole on the doll stand. I just push it in because it is tight enough to hold it firmly by itself. And with this last step, we have a really pretty doll stand, and I'm so happy that it turned out this nice. It's so glossy and pretty, and I think it's the perfect doll stand for Sylvie. Alright guys, the time has finally come. Let's paint the face. After spraying her with Mr. Super Clear and applying some micro glitter to the face for a nice sheen, I start by blushing her cheeks with soft pink pastel chalk dust. I slowly build up the pigments for a nice and even look, and also apply some blushing to the lips with a smaller brush. After applying some forehead blushing as well, I then go in and give her some vibrant pink eyeshadow before finally starting to add the eyelines. I like to sketch them out with a brown pencil first, because I can erase mistakes easier. This part of the face-up usually takes the longest because you want to make sure the sketched out lines look nice and as close to the original as possible in this case. I also give her some eyelashes already, since I'm not going to glue 3D lashes. The bottom lashes also can't be missing, of course. When I'm satisfied with the sketched lines, I can then take my small brush and start filling in the lines with black acrylic paint. I don't know, but I find this step of the face-up oddly satisfying. When both eyes and the lip center line were lined, I can then sketch out the eyebrows. I decided to go for a darker blue sketched line that I will fill in with a lighter acrylic blue afterwards. This way, the darker sketched line almost looks a bit like an outline and gives it more depth. And when the face is completely painted, I then can finally add my favorite pearly shimmers to the face. This time I went for iridescent shimmer on the eyelids and cheeks. It makes the face so I wrote sparkly again! Yeah, it makes the face very sparkly, and I really love the vibe so much. Last but not least, I add some gloss to the lips and lower lash line using my Liquitex High Gloss Varnish. And while the face was drying, I decided to make her eyes. Blue kindly made the template for the iris, and I cropped them to size and printed them on shiny cardboard. Then, using the 15mm half sphere on my mold, I first fill it up with some UV resin. Bubbles should be removed with a lighter, and then I take the eye and place it upside down on top of the resin. I cure it for a couple of minutes in my UV lamp, and then we can demold. Yes, oh my god, it turned out so pretty. I then make a second eye the same way, and with both eyes done, let's put them into the doll face. Yeah, okay, wow, now she looks actually already like Silvervale. What? Okay, now I really cannot wait to put her together. There is just some teeny tiny things still missing. I still have to paint the branches on her legs. I use the same brown acrylic paint I used on the crown and dress branches, and paint the branches with it. And then I use some more sakura flowers and glue them on top of the leg. Sylvie also wears nail polish on the feet and fingers, and Blue already sculpted some longer toenails to the toes, so I just have to paint and gloss these. And then I have to make her some claws. For that I use the same technique as I did on my Iron Mouse doll. Just this time I make the nails even longer. I tape the finger, create a nail with UV resin, cure it, take it off the finger, remove the tape, and then glue it onto the finger with a dot of UV resin and cure it again. And then I have to do that to all 10 fingers until I end up with something like this. And then, just like with the toenails, I have to paint them, gloss them, and also decided to apply some shimmery glitter powder with an eyeshadow applicator. And with that, the hands are done, and so finally is the doll. I proudly present to you Silvervale. And here's my Sakura goddess Silvervale. Despite this project being so much more difficult than anticipated, I'm just so happy how she turned out. I hope Sylvie herself loves this doll as well. Can you guess which VTuber I'm going to make next? The video will come in the beginning of March. I hope you guys loved watching this process video, and a special thanks goes out to all of my patrons. Your support is so incredible. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video and have a beautiful, divine day. Bye! Whee!